Well, first of all, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this session. And we're going to be dealing with cabin refurbishment. Now, how many people are actually working on refurbishment programs right now? Any hands in the air, or who have worked on refurbishment programs? Okay, it means that we have a very interesting audience, and I should be saying hello, because we have a very, very special group of panelists today, experts in their field, our esteemed panelists. I'm going to ask the panelists to introduce themselves, and then I have a question for each panelist. I'm going to say, could you tell us about the most memorable, or the most unusual, or the most difficult, or the most expensive refurbishment program that you've ever worked on? And this will give us a background of the business, the way the business has emerged. In my own case, and it's in chapter 4 of my book, my most interesting refurb program was definitely Concorde, at the time of the change from government ownership to investor ownership, and all the details are in the case study. So let's start, David, with you. You're next to me. Would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Yes, thank
and
you.
then we'll come back to the interesting refurbishment programs after you've all introduced yourselves.
Okay, thanks very much. So my name's David Rice. Been in the industry 35 years. Started in British Airways as an engineer. Worked in the design office for Cabin Interiors. I've worked for Airbus in the customisation department. A couple of IFE manufacturers as well. And for the last 10 years I've been working in aftermarket cabin parts and refurbishments, having my own business for the last 9 years.
Thank you. Daniel.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Dan Kerrison, Senior Vice President of Inflight Operations at flydubai. Flydubai is the second airline in Dubai. Like Emirates, Flydubai is owned by the government of Dubai. We have a fleet of 88 aircraft now, 737s. I've been with flydubai from day one, just over 16 years now, and I'm responsible for everything in the cabin, end to end, from the design of the aircraft interior through to the service delivery on board, cabin crew management, catering, in-flight entertainment, and what else? In-flight retail, the whole lot. Anything the customer experiences in flight at flydubai. So that's who I am.
Thank you, Daniel. Now, can we move on to Melanie, please?
Hi everyone, I'm Melanie Berry. I am the Director of Customer Experience at Iberia, which is part of IAG. Very similar roles. I would say look after everything from toilet rolls to toilets and everything in between. A very, very interesting role. It's the 5th airline that I've worked in. I've been very privileged to work all over the world. Started off my career at Britannia Airways, moved to the Seychelles for Air Seychelles, then to Qatar Airways, before I went to Virgin Australia before moving to Iberia. So I've had a great career all over the world with lots of different experiences and challenges.
We'll come back to some of those experiences, Melanie, with you a little bit later. And Jacobo, your turn now.
Thank you very much. My name is Jacob Mesta. We are a company based in Mexico. We are specialized in upholstery and everything that has to do with upholstery, dress covers, cushions, foam inserts, and we are a family-owned business that we started 17 years ago. We used to do jeans since 75 years, since my grandfather started a jean company. Then we went bankrupt in 2006 and we started an aerospace company, and we've been growing since then. So since then we've been in the aircraft industry, practically doing interiors. Opened a facility in Dubai in 2022 to serve our friends from flydubai, and practically doing nearshoring, what everybody does in Mexico for the US, we did, but in Dubai. And since 2022, we have an additional facility in Dubai.
That's great. Thank you for giving us the background. And now we can move on to refurbishment programs. And essentially, cabin refurbishment is the beating heart of the aviation business. There are no prizes for standing still in aviation. Aviation is synonymous with innovation. And all through the history of aviation, we've seen the business moving ahead through cabin refurbishment. I know the engineers say the engines are the most important part, and if you talk to the avionics people, guess what they'll tell you. But it's the passenger that counts, and passenger-driven change is what keeps the aviation business in action. And even the engineers, they sit in the cabin when they travel. So I think I'm biased, but for all of us in this business, it's the cabin that's the central focus of our work in aviation. And the Darwinian scientists tell us that the race doesn't go to the biggest or the strongest or the fastest. Survival depends on being the most adaptable. So let's turn to our panelists, and would you like to tell us about some of your own memorable experiences? Jacob, could we start with you this time, please?
Sure. Well, not because he's here, but I think our biggest successful but difficult retrofit program was when we had to move our facility from Chihuahua to Dubai. So one of the things that we had to start doing is to be as close as possible to our customer. I think one of the biggest and most important things right now is the less we shorten the supply chain and to get as fast as possible to our clients, the better. And we started doing it with flydubai, and we started moving a lot of the capacity to Dubai, and they were very helpful. It was very difficult. It took us a while, more than a regular retrofit program that can probably turn around in 2 or 4 months. But it was a challenge, and I think after half a year we got it up and going and running, and I think right now we're set. And right now we've been delivering for 1.5 years now. But compared to a regular retrofit program, I can say, because it was a retrofit program, we started doing the 737-800s, and it was retrofit, but it was not only doing it where you normally do it, but it's now doing it locally. So that was very interesting. That was very challenging, and now it's up and running, and it's been good.
So Daniel, can you add anything to that description? You were there in the hot seat at the time, is that right?
True. I mean, we've worked very closely with Soisa, and we're very pleased to welcome them to Dubai. It's important for us to have suppliers who are reliable, dependable, and local wherever possible. And by establishing a new facility in Dubai, Soisa have been able to dramatically reduce the turn time for parts for us, which is very helpful because we are a very agile organization. We pride ourselves on our ability to adapt and evolve quickly to keep ahead of the market. Cabin refurbishment is really a fundamental part of our DNA at flydubai. In fact, you could say in some respects every airplane that we fly is a cabin refurbishment project. We take brand new airplanes from Boeing, excuse me, we take them empty, no seats, no cabins whatsoever, and we install the interiors ourselves.
You mentioned biofurnished equipment, BFE.
Correct. So it's a post-delivery modification. So the airplane comes empty, and we install everything ourselves. We do that for a number of reasons, but most importantly, by doing that, we're able to install new products which potentially are not available line fit at Boeing. Typically, we can be one generation ahead when it comes to things like in-flight entertainment. We were the first airline, for example, in the world to offer high definition in-flight entertainment at every seat in the cabin. And we could only do that because we installed the cabin ourselves. Boeing, we're not ready to in the nicest possible way, to deliver that type of technology in 2010 when we installed it. So the same applies for our seats, our business class seats, our economy class seats, our in-flight entertainment system. None of it was available, line fit, when we wanted to install that cabin in 2010. So every airplane comes empty. We install the interior ourselves. So really, it's a refurbishment, if you like, from day one. But we also we lease airplanes. Typically, it's sale and lease back transactions. So we buy from Boeing, we sell to a lessor, we lease them back for a period of 8 years. With the max aircraft, it's 9 years. And so we actually are planning now for a mid-life refurbishment. So last year at the Dubai Air Show, flydubai announced the purchase of 30 787 Dreamliners, which is a big step for us, going from a narrow-bodied operator to wide-body operator. Those airplanes will be with us for 12 years, and already we're planning a retrofit in 6 years' time, in 2034 or so.
So the refurbishment is running through your business the whole time. It isn't just something that gets done from time to time.
Correct. Mm-hmm. It's planned, and it's part of how we operate.
Strategy. Thank you. Melanie, how about your experiences?
My most memorable is probably the very first one I was involved in, which is a very long time ago, so I can't remember every detail, but I worked for a charter airline, and at the time the industry was changing, so I worked on a program to not only retrofit the cabin but to repitch, which was quite a big thing at the time for a charter airline. It was before EasyJet existed, and it was about trying to give people more room on long-haul flights instead of less. I think we moved from 28 or 29-inch pitch to 30, which was a really big thing at the time. It's where I learned a lot. It was the very first one that I'd ever been involved in, so I had a lot to learn, but it was exciting and it was innovating at the time. I mean, it's still, I think, quite innovational now. Yes. When I look back.
Cabin layout is one of the most complicated areas of refurbishment. At the other end of the spectrum, we have work that can be done on the overnights in the hangars, put on new headrest covers, put on new seat covers. The finance people are happy because these are lighter weight, meaning less jet fuel, meaning consequent reduction in carbon emissions. And those are level 1 activities going through the different programs involving IFE, involving acoustic insulation, lavatories, galleys, overhead bins. We get right up to the top level. This is in my chapter 13, where it's cabin layout, the LOPA changing, which is a huge job. So David, let's move on to your most memorable program.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes, so really all the ones we do are quite memorable because we have to move pretty quickly. We work a lot with the leasing companies and the smaller airlines, the wet lease airlines, when they're bringing in an aircraft and have to reconfigure it very quickly and get it into service. Mainly with the leasing companies, are very key because they don't want to lose any lease rates. So they want to get that aircraft into lease as soon as possible. So from an aircraft coming back from one airline to going out to another one, they generally only got 6 weeks. So they can't start going to buy OEM parts generally because they've got a 90-day lead time, 120-day lead times. They come to us because they know we've got all the parts that we need, and they know that we can refurbish them and change the colours and do all the things they need to do within the given time. So that's one of the big kind of challenges but that's kind of every month.
Well, that sounds like a major challenge the whole time round.
Yes, yes, but an interesting.
Yes. Let's move on now to the next topic, and that is return on investment. Now, where I live in New York, we have Wall Street, and in Wall Street area, they say, hey, you've got to speculate in order to accumulate. And within the airline business, you can just imagine what it's like planning some of these enormous programs that our panelists have described. And Melanie, you made a very interesting point about pinpointing and identifying possibilities on return on investment before and after the activity. Would you like to tell the audience a bit about that and your own experience?
Yeah, for us it's really about NPS and customer satisfaction, because I don't need to tell all of you, there is a definite life cycle which Daniel has mentioned, and as an aircraft gets older, particularly the wide-body aircraft that are doing long haul, as they get older, the satisfaction decreases and the NPS decreases. And with that, that is likelihood to recommend. So that is customers that aren't going to recommend you anymore. So if you don't work on the refurbishment and retrofit program, because I think in the life cycle there are two parts to that, then you will end up losing customers. So your customer satisfaction and your NPS starts to tell you as the scores go down that it's definitely the right time of the cycle to be doing that. And then once you've done those programs, you can then measure it. Because I always find it's very difficult in my job, because I can't put a financial value on it so much. I have to use customer satisfaction and NPS data. But post the retrofit or the refurbishment, then the improvement of the satisfaction is how then I will demonstrate the benefit of the exercise.
So when we look around now, there are so many refurbishment programs in action. Some airlines are installing premium economy cabins, class sections within the aircraft. Some are putting fully flat beds into single aisle aircraft. Some airlines are expanding their business class, because that's on and up now with the B leisure market segment. Some airlines are getting rid of first class. They're all having to work out what sort of return are we going to get for this investment. Now, what happens in your company? Daniel, do you have a very strict approach? Do you have to produce facts and figures well in advance, or are you able to march ahead and then bring out the details later on? How does it work in your company?
I think we're very fortunate to have a very solid and let's say visionary leader in our CEO Gaethel Gaeth, and he trusts his team and lets us get on with the job of being the best that we can. You talked about lie flat seats in business class. Flydubai in 2017 was the first airline in the world to have lie flat seats on a 737 in business class. But that went very well. Our passengers love it. But we don't rest on our laurels. Gaeth said a few years later, I guess, maybe I don't know, 3 or 4 years after that product entered service, he's like, "What's next? We need to continue evolving." And so we announced last year our new business class product, which is a suite with a door, and we'll be the first 737 operator with suites in business class. When that product goes into service early next year. So we continue evolving. We have a leader in Gaethel Gaeth who trusts us and lets us get on with doing the job. Now there is a chief financial officer, of course, who wants to see the numbers. Where's the business case? Can we afford to do this? Show me the return on investment. Gaeth's view is, well, we can't afford not to do this. And we rely on NPS. It's very important to measure the satisfaction of our customers through NPS and CSAT metrics, but it's not something we can actually put a dollar value on. It's the sentiment of our customers wanting to come back and fly with us again and again that drives those decisions.
Thank you. Now, how about your company, Jacob? Do you have ways to demonstrate return on investment? How do you handle that topic?
Yes, and I will go a little bit prior the retrofit program, and I think that for the airlines to do BFE program with dress covers, for example, that we do, and buying the dress cover originally from the seat cover manufacturer instead of from the OEM, that will bring a lot of benefits to the airline. It will, and for the OEM as well. For the OEM, we would help them with all the administrative burden and with all the support of getting the materials on time to their assembly line. And for the airlines, the cost would be very low, much lower, and the lead time would be reduced huge. So those two benefits of doing it BFE for the airline are hit on the ROI, because also once you do it BFE and you can keep that same part number throughout the life of the aircraft without having to do any certification or going through FAA or PMA or EASA, that's going to hit a lot on the ROI as well. So doing that, I think it's a very good opportunity for the airlines to save a lot of time, money, and effort.
Great, and effort. Time, money, and effort, yes.
And the responsibility will be set on us instead of them or the OEM. And the cost of capital will also help because we will be doing the expenditures instead of the airline or the OEM. We can support with inventory and everything in order to support any AOGs or any fast response. So I think financially the CFOs will be very happy with that option.
Thank you. And David, how about your experience?
So yeah, from my side, it's more of a return on investment is slightly different. You know, you're looking at buying a much cheaper second-hand part that's been refurbished versus buying a new part which can be 3 or 4 times the price and take a lot longer. But then you got the other side of it, which is the kind of sustainability side of things, where you can say to your customers, okay, we're reusing parts now rather than buying new.
Yes, we're going to come to sustainability a little bit later. In the meantime, what about the wow factor? What about the main items that customers are looking for these days? And have you any particular thoughts on this subject, your own experience or your comments about other airlines? What are these special items? For example, shower, spa units, cocktail bars. What about some of the special effects now, lighting, for example, that we see on board the aircraft? What is it that customers very much want to have as you develop your refurbishment programs? Has anyone got any special thoughts?
Well, I think as a flying customer, what I see a lot these days is the vast myriad of different offerings in terms of Wi-Fi and connectivity, and people and different airlines' approaches to it. You know, some will charge, some won't charge. Some you get much better service in business class than you do in economy, and there seems to be no kind of blanket way of handling it. Everybody has their own personality with it. Is what I see as a customer.
What about your experience, Melanie? Have you got any?
I would say, just to kind of follow up on that, the real thing that definitely our customers are expecting is to be able to carry on their everyday lives on board. So they don't want to be disconnected, they want to be connected. So connectivity is key, and it never used to be in our CSAT, in our customer satisfaction. Wi-Fi scores have always been really, really low, but now as we improve and technology is improving, and actually we've been talking more today about being in partnership to make it more standard, but as technology is improving, that is now driving our NPS. It has a really positive impact on NPS, so they definitely expect to be connected. After COVID, privacy, you know, the very same thing. We've also installed doors in our business class in Iberia, so privacy was important. privacy in economy is important, but it's more about space, and space is a really big challenge in economy, as we all know. So we're always looking for different ways to innovate and what we can do to improve the experience in economy, because they are really the big numbers that we have in our aircraft and where we make the money. So we actually do a lot of research, so we talk to our customers all of the time to understand what their expectations are. And when they tell us things, we test them, because quite often people tell you what they think is the right thing to tell you, but not really maybe what they would actually do. So we try and test things. We bring seats to Madrid and we invite customers in where we test the theories. I've used an analogy before where we did it with food. You know, we asked everybody a big questionnaire. Do you want healthy or do you want indulgent? This is the easiest way to explain it. Everybody said they want healthy. Everybody. We went back an hour later and offered everybody fruit or a nice chocolate cake, and not one person picked fruit. So those kind of theories and philosophies are really important to test in everything that we ask people, because I think sometimes your subconscious isn't what your conscious is telling you. So we test everything. So we listen, but then we test just to make sure it's correct.
Any other thoughts on this difficult subject?
You know, I would echo the sentiments that from technology point of view, connectivity is really important. Connectivity, we're seeing Bluetooth headphones and wireless charging being important to people, or convenient. It's a convenience factor in what people are starting to expect. From a connectivity point of view, we believe it has to be fast and it has to be free. I mean, that's what people are coming to expect. There used to be a time you'd go to a hotel and you'd have to log in and charge, and credit cards. Airports were the same many years ago, but it's becoming common, I guess, for connectivity. It's becoming an expectation that connectivity be fast and free. We installed connectivity on our fleet of 737s back in 2016. Didn't really work very well. It was very expensive, and our passengers didn't use it for those reasons. It was a bad experience, and I think all of us have probably had a bad experience with in-flight connectivity. So again, our CEO Gates last year said, you know what, this is enough. Enough's enough. Turn it off. So we turn it off. We'd rather have no connectivity than bad connectivity that people aren't willing to pay for. They don't value it. It doesn't work. We're not going to pay for it. So a kind of vicious cycle. But we're committed. In fact, our chairman, Sheikh Ahmed bin Zayed Al Maktoum, chairman of flydubai, chairman of Emirates, he said last year, he kind of said, you've got to be offering connectivity everywhere. It's got to work. And so now we've reset. Gates said, turn it off. We know there's a lot of exciting technology on the horizon. We have electronically seated antennas, we have LEO networks, we have hybrid networks, multi-orbit networks. It's very exciting. You know, we're not quite there yet, but I think in 2 years' time, the technology will be there. And so we've said, by the time our 787s enter service in 2026, we need to be connected fleet-wide. It needs to work, it needs to be fast, it needs to be free. So that's our focus now. Business class, direct aisle access, doors. That's it. I flew here yesterday from Dubai on another airline with 7 abreast business class. 7 abreast business class doesn't work in 2024. It doesn't meet customers' expectations. We're committed to providing the highest level of privacy and comfort in business class, and we believe the answer is direct aisle access for all passengers and suites with doors.
Yes, privacy doors have become big business, and not just the doors at waist level or shoulder level. We're now talking floor to ceiling in some cases. So obviously that's one of the hot potato items for the coming few years in the premium classes. So let's move on to sustainability. IATA announcement by 2050, fly net zero. And the big mantra, zero waste. And all the airlines now are talking about reduction of carbon emissions. In their websites, they have special sections on this topic, just as nowadays they have a special section on accessibility, which is wonderful progress. We didn't see that in past years, but we do now. And so with the sustainability programs, we're not talking about a one-off activity. We're talking about sustainability strategies for airlines going into the future. And the main point is reducing weight, because when weight can be reduced, this means less jet fuel, consequent reduction in carbon emissions. So there are many other aspects to sustainability. In my own chapter 15, I have 100 items, ranging from really basic things to very complicated topics. But I think every airline is busy in the field of sustainability. Would you like to tell us about your work? What is happening on circularity, renewability, replaceability?
Yeah, I mean, we're doing, obviously selling refurbished parts is a very big part of that, and as we're getting more grounding with more airlines, putting equipment on and that's going into airlines through leasing companies, for us is doing very well, because the airline realises that they can come and work with us as well. So we're getting more visibility with some of the smaller people, but it's growing now all the time, and we're starting to go up the food chain, if you like, and buying ovens and coffee makers as well, and we're now supplying those. And this is all, and everything is refurbished and recycled and put back out into the service.
Yes, the focus on recyclability has turned into one of the major topics. For example, dry cleaning carpets on board the aircraft, and then eventually when that carpet has to be taken off the aircraft, it gets moved to commercial or residential use. We're talking about serveware, tableware, cups, saucers, plates that are biodegradable in under 100 days, for example. What about seat foams? Think about all the seat foams that are sitting there in landfill, and they'll be there for the next century. What's happening with the development of seat foams that will be biodegradable? There are so many activities. So what's happening in, let me move along to Melanie. Melanie, this time, how about your airline work?
We're obviously very focused on weight. That's definitely the key focus that we've had. But now we're starting to look at materials, what material we can use, about recyclability, but also about reusability. You know, if we want to do a retrofit program, are there any elements that could be reused? You know, can suppliers start working together so maybe the seat legs or different components can be used? I actually was listening to a panel yesterday from Peter Vink, who has been doing a lot of research, and he has developed with his students a new replacement for foam seats, which looks very, very interesting. So I think it's still very early days in kind of sustainability from an interiors point of view. We've still got a lot of work to do. For us also, accessibility is part of sustainability. You know, it's the S of the ESG, so we're also putting a big focus on that and making sure that the cabin and the seats are accessible for every type of customer.
Yes, that's another area of development. And you mentioned Professor Vink, who did bring out a very interesting book a few years ago, along with Klaus Brauer from Boeing, on cabin comfort. I can recommend that book. So thank you for that. Anything from your side, Jacobo, on sustainability?
Yes, we're part of the manufacturing side, so for us it's sometimes hard because we get dictated which leather to use, which materials to use. So we have to invent something to do with upcycling the materials. So we created a program called From Waste to Wonder, and we are donating all the leather scrap that we use in our manufacturing operation. We donate it to the local ethnic people called Tarahumaras in Mexico, and they are doing magnificent parts, wallets, tablecloths, different types of products for them to sell and create additional income. So we started doing that with them, and then we moved with women in prison. So we donated to them. They do parts, they sell them out, and it's part of that program that we're doing. And today we brought a armrest. We do armrests as well, and we're trying to substitute the foam with corn-based material.
Oh.
So it's lighter. It's the aesthetic is the same, and after the show we're gonna go out and burn it, see how it works, and how, because then you always have the FAA and the EASA
Yes.
to stop a lot of the inventions or the ideas that people have, right? So hopefully it's something that works and we can help the airlines reduce weight, and then, like you mentioned, don't throw to the land. I mean, we're reducing everything that we throw to landfill, huge, I mean, kilos and kilos with this.
Yeah.
And hopefully we can help that with foam as well.
Yes, that's very forward-looking. Let's move on quickly to one of our last topics. What about supply chain delays? During COVID, everybody suffered. Did you have any particular experience of dealing with supply chain delays? If so, what did you do? How did you deal with that? Daniel, what about your side? You were dealing with a lot of aircraft.
Yeah, and this is the biggest issue that we have today. Jacobo here is pretty much the only supplier we have that actually delivers on time.
Well done.
Oh, wow.
Well, and is committed to establishing a facility near 5 minutes drive from our place to help that. But it's, I mean, that's a bit of a stretch. There are others, but we need all of our suppliers to deliver on time, or nothing gets done. Right? We can't begin a program until everything has arrived. We take airplanes, as I said, empty, and that airplane doesn't go into service if all of our suppliers don't deliver parts. I spoke earlier about our new business class suite, first 737 operator with suites. That airplane should have been flying in January of last year, if I'm not mistaken. I get a bit confused with time. It's 2 years late. And it's the seat supplier, it's the IFE supplier, we're putting electronically dimmed windows on this airplane, again a first for 737, it's that supplier, it's EASA, it's the FAA, it's engineering resource, it's everything. We have people telling us that they're late because of COVID.
COVID's gone now.
COVID-19,
We need other excuses now.
Not COVID 2024.
So think about the biggest refurbishment program ever in the history of aviation, which is taking place right now in Dubai at Emirates. Nearly 200 aircraft. They're talking about a $2 billion investment. They're talking about 2 years. They're talking about 1,000 man-hours a day. And I think if Sir Maurice Flanagan had seen that, he would say 1,000 person hours per day, not necessarily man hours per day, but $2 billion investment. And when I think about that, and I think about supply chain, I just hope that things are going to move ahead as advertised, but that is a huge undertaking. So we're coming now to the end of this session, and we do have time for some questions. Just before that, I'm going to ask, do you have words of wisdom for our audience, something that you know now that you wish you had known when you started in the business? How about you, David?
Well, there's quite a few things, but
Just one.
Yeah, but they're not really suitable for this forum, probably. But the one thing I do like about
Don't
this
blame the
industry,
customers, don't blame the
one thing I
customers.
do like about this industry is that even 35 years in, especially in interiors, I'm always learning. You never ever know everything, and we're in a constantly evolving part of the business, which is very exciting, I think.
That's the beauty of the business.
Absolutely,
Yes.
absolutely.
How about you, Daniel?
I mean, look, to me it comes down to do your job, right?
Yeah.
Everyone has to do their job, and we've been let down far too often. We have to remember that every dollar in this ecosystem comes from our passengers.
Yes, customers.
We market to them, we get that money into our ecosystem, and we share it with our suppliers and the whole community. Everyone needs to do their job.
Next, Melanie.
Don't underestimate the power of the brand and on the external and the internal, so the power that the interiors has on customers' perception.
Which is something that's only been in the last 20 or so years as well, which is
Yeah.
very interesting.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
your final words?
I would go also with deliver and walk the talk, and the reputation that you say when you say you're going to do it, you better do it.
Yes. And the airline is always looking for return on investment. We're talking about real estate. Every square inch is of vital importance. Okay. Any quick questions, please? Sir, yes.
Andreas Speth, aviation journalist. I'd like to come back to recycling briefly. But for me, it's striking on this show this year that it's a much bigger topic all of a sudden. Airbus has huge things and other companies as well. I'd just like to ask the panel, can you give us I know it's a difficult topic, but why is this cabin interior industry so late, even later than the aircraft industry, in recycling and fostering recycling and enabling recycling?
We're working at it.
Why is it? Why didn't you start earlier?
Actually, it's very technical. The main things that drag this back is the technical side. You've got burns testing, you've got different composite materials being used, and this is the complexities, unfortunately, with cabin interiors, and that's why things just don't move quite as fast as they perhaps should.
So it's heat release, fire flammability, smoke, toxicity. All these products have to go through masses of testing, FAA, EASA, and other regulatory authorities. But it's all happening. Next, any more questions from the audience? Any comments? Right, well, thank you very much, everyone, for joining this unit today and for joining in this session. It's been great for us to meet, and I wish that we could go on a bit longer, and thank you very much for giving your experiences, and thank you everyone. Hope you enjoy the rest of the event, and special thanks to our session sponsor, which is Optimum Aero, and I want to ask you please to give a round of applause for our panelists.